Let's face it, life isn't always the party we thought it would be. So how do we find the joy when we need it? And what if it's up to us to create it? That's where the Party On podcast comes in. Our goal? To shine the proverbial disco light on all the things that can make our lives easier, healthier, and a heck of a lot more fun. So we can enjoy the party we were all invited to, live our best lives, and dance like no one's watching. Hey friends, welcome back to the Party On podcast. I am very excited about what we're talking about today. But before we jump in, I have a favor to ask of you. If you have been enjoying this podcast, if this podcast has brightened your days in any way, shape, or form, if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, or even YouTube, because we're up on YouTube now, and leave us a review, that would be amazing. We have over 230 five-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, which just makes me feel over the moon, excited and filled with joy, because I just can't believe that many of you are listening and enjoying it. And I'm loving the messages that you are sending me via email each week. So if you are enjoying the podcast, head on over there again to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube and leave us a review. And as always, this podcast is brought to you by the Festive Farm Co., your one-stop shop to send your loved ones gifts with real meaning. Our items usually make it to where there's not a dry eye in the room, and when you see everything in our shop, you'll know why. So head to thefestivefarmco.com and check it out. Now, let's jump right in. And I'm going to jump right in by asking you a question that I already know the answer to because I'm psychic. Just kidding. I'm really not psychic, but I do think I know the answer. In fact, I'm positive I know the answer. Have you ever said yes to something when every part of you meant no? You maybe agreed to help with something, you smiled and said, "Of course, I'd love to help." And then later you're asking yourself, why did I say yes to that? And we do this, right? And the tricky part is afterwards, maybe even we're resentful. And we're usually overexhausted. And if you're like me, really, mostly you're confused on why it's so darn hard to be honest. And that's what we're talking about today, is people pleasing, because that is exactly what that is. People pleasing, by definition, is a pattern of putting other people's needs, comfort, or approval ahead of your own, often at the cost of your boundaries, time, energy, or authenticity. Dang, that definition is so good. We're gonna go through that again. People pleasing is a pattern of putting other people's needs, comfort, or approval ahead of your own, often at the cost, key part here, of your boundaries, time, energy, or authenticity. At its core, it's usually driven by fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or fear of disappointing others. And also, there's usually something much deeper happening when we people please. So today we're talking about it, we're going to get into it, and we're going to talk about some ways that we can start, because this is a long process, you guys. I am a recovering people pleaser, and I say that I will be recovering for the rest of my life because it's just wired in me. We're going to talk about that as well. But underneath the people pleasing, there's often something even deeper happening than just those fears of disappointing people. And it's usually a quiet belief that says, if everyone is happy with me, then I'm safe. Then I'll be safe. If everyone is content with me and there's no conflict, I am safe. But the thing is, our lives cannot be built around managing everyone else's discomfort. It just is not sustainable. Trust me, I tried. I crashed and burned. I lost my sense of self. I lost all my joy. It does not work. So let's talk about how people pleasing usually starts, because it starts long before we realize it, usually in early childhood, and somewhere along the way we learned to be agreeable, to be helpful, to be nice and easy, and to not rock the boat. And if we do all of those things, we'll be liked, we'll be accepted and loved. And again, so many of this starts in early childhood because maybe you were the peacekeeper in your family, or maybe you learned that keeping everyone happy kept everything calm in your volatile household. Or maybe you were overly praised for being the good one, the consistent one, the helpful one. And you learned to anticipate needs before anyone ever asked. And as adults, that skill can really look like emotional intelligence, but really it's massive self-protection. And there's a deep, deep cost that comes with it. The problem with people pleasing, because in the very beginning, I remember when I started learning about people pleasing and how much of a problem I had with it. I was like, is it really that big of a deal? Like, we're just trying to make other people happy. No. Like, really, truly, when you live in a way of people pleasing, it is dangerous because it slowly being the dangerous part, disconnects you from yourself. And this is a big part of why I lost myself all those years ago and why I lost my joy, like I said, because I was so concerned with everyone else but me. And I think this also happens right after you become a mom, or if you are a caretaker in any shape or form. Because slowly, and without you even realizing it, you get so used to asking, what do they need? What will make them happy? What will keep the peace? This also happens in troublesome relationships. And then you stop asking the most important question, which is, what do I need? What will make me happy? What do I want? And over time, when you lose a sense of that, it creates resentment and exhaustion and burnout. And for me, it was identity confusion. And you start realizing that the life you are living is built around everyone else's expectations. And that realization can be terrifying because then if you stop people pleasing, if you stop living for everyone else, who will you be? And not knowing that is a really scary place to be. And here's the part I really want you to hear, because I didn't understand this back in the day when I went through it. People pleasing isn't just a habit, guys. It's a nervous system response. Your brain learned so early on that approval equals safety. So when you even consider saying no, or when you even consider rocking the boat or disappointing someone, your body acts like you were actually in danger. You feel anxiety, guilt, all the things, racing thoughts, your heart pounds. I can remember specifically this one time where I was practicing saying no, and it was for the tiniest thing, you guys. I think I just said, no, I cannot do that at this time. And right afterwards, I needed to go grocery shopping. So I walked around the grocery store for about 30 minutes, just aimlessly, with the tightest grip on the shopping cart, saying to myself over and over again, I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a bad person. Everyone must have thought I was crazy. But that's how much it rattled my nervous system to just say no to one minor thing. So it really, truly is a nervous system response. And that's why breaking the pattern isn't just about deciding to stop. It's about slowly teaching your nervous system, I can survive someone being disappointed with me. And it's okay if this takes a while, you guys, because our nervous systems take time. And it's funny, I highlighted the word slowly before. I think slowly is our nervous system's favorite word. Like when we do anything slowly, when we give ourselves time and grace and space, I think our nervous system just, I imagine it taking this deep sigh of, they're not going to rush me, so we can do this. So people don't stop people pleasing just because they read a quote on Instagram or Pinterest. They just don't. You can't just decide to stop. It takes practice. And usually people hit a point where they break and something inside of them just snaps. And that's when they start to say, I can't do this anymore. And sometimes that looks like burnout. A lot of times it looks like resentment in our relationships. We're pointing the flashlight in the other direction, and really we need to point it inwards and say, how are we abandoning ourselves? And maybe it's the moment you realize you've spent your entire life being who everyone else needs you to be, and you don't know who you are anymore. And that moment is so painful. I know because I've lived it, but it's also so powerful because it's the moment you start asking, what would my life look like if I stopped performing for approval? What would my life look like if I could be free from that? And that is such a beautiful question. So let's talk about some steps we can take to break the pattern of people pleasing. And first of all, remember, this does not happen overnight. It starts very, very small. And I think the place it has to start is awareness. So step one, we're going to be calling the pause. And really, it's just noticing. I want you to start to notice when you go into autopilot and you start saying yes automatically. Just notice. That's step number one. There's a second part of this step, but that's all you need to do for this step. And if that's all you can do this week is just notice when you're saying yes to things automatically, you're doing great. The second part of this step is, if you catch yourself on autopilot saying yes automatically, pause and ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Or am I agreeing to do this because I feel obligated? All of these steps are going to be written down in the notes below, so you don't have to worry about this if you're listening while you're driving. But again, ask yourself, do I actually want to do this? Or am I just saying yes on autopilot? And when we start to notice this and we start to practice saying no, sometimes the first step isn't even saying no. Saying no was really hard for me at first. It can also look like saying, and this is the beauty of the pause, you know what, let me think about it. Or can I get back to you tomorrow? Or I'll let you know. And those statements, if you just have a list of those statements, they are the pause. And that simple pause can give you so much power back because it gives you time to think and it retrains your brain to check in with yourself and say, what are my needs? I know what this person's needs are, but what are my needs? Okay, step two. Understand that it is okay to disappoint other people. How uncomfortable were you when I said that? Let me say it again. It is okay to disappoint other people. That statement 5 years ago probably would have sent me into hyperventilation or a panic attack because it did not feel okay. And it can take some time to understand that it's not okay because people pleasers, we believe our job is to manage everyone else's emotions. And again, so much grace for this because we learned this in childhood. We all thought it was normal. It was our job. It kept us safe. And for a lot of people, it really did keep us safe. If you grew up in a volatile or an abusive household, keeping the peace probably actually kept you safe. So no shaming ourselves here at all. But here's the truth about disappointing people. Are you ready? It's not an emergency. It may feel like emergency to your nervous system, but it is not an emergency. When you say no and when you choose yourself and when you stop overgiving, it is inevitable that someone is going to be uncomfortable. And that's okay. I think one way to think about it is think about other people's feelings are just information. They're not your responsibility. They're not a command. Their feelings are information, and that doesn't change anything. That doesn't change your truth. That doesn't change your boundaries. That doesn't change who you are. Just because somebody is disappointed does not mean your point of view is wrong. So we have to remember that it is okay to disappoint other people, and we have to be prepared to disappoint other people, especially if we have been people-pleasing our entire lives. Guys, that means everyone around you is accustomed to you saying yes all of the time and doing things their way all of the time. And trust me when I say, when you start to put yourself first, even a little bit more often, a lot of people around you are not going to like it. But the beauty of that is that the right people will see it and honor that you are growing and learning and doing what you need to do for you, and they will love you for that and they will support you for that. And the wrong people who do not like that you are not pleasing them anymore will fall away. So it doesn't make it any easier, but the first step, understand it's okay. It's okay to disappoint other people. Okay, step 3. Practice tiny acts of honesty. You do not have to wake up tomorrow and become the most assertive person in the room to stop people pleasing. You don't. But just try a few small things. So instead of saying, whatever you want is fine, say, I'd actually prefer this. One of the ways that it was the tiniest ways, and you guys might laugh at me, but I used to never say what I wanted to eat when we were going out to eat. I would let everyone else say what they wanted, and I would say, whatever is fine. And I remember it was a big freaking deal. This was only a couple years ago, by the way. It was a big freaking deal the first time I said, you know what? I am craving Italian. And I remember I just kind of froze in the front seat of the car because I was like, did that just come out of my mouth? Like I had a tiny act of honesty there. And I said, I prefer this. And you know what? Nobody exploded. Everything was fine. So try that and try it instead of saying, yes, I can do that automatically. Try having a moment of honesty where you say, you know what? I would love to help, but I actually have a lot on my plate today. Every teeny tiny small moment of honesty is retraining your nervous system super slowly, that it's safe to be yourself. It's safe to show up as you are. It's safe to say your truth. And the more you practice, the better you get at it. And the more your nervous system starts to realize, oh, this is safe. I can do this. And remember, the right people in your life don't love the version of you that performs. They want the version of you that's real. They really, really do. So start showing up with tiny acts of honesty so that you can be that real person and not the person who performs. Okay, now here is the part about quitting people pleasing that I really, really do want to warn you about. And it's why it's so hard to quit doing. Because when you start even putting these micro practices into place, there's a part of you that will just feel like you are being the most horrible person in the world. Because we are so used to overgiving and we are so used to overpleasing. And it's conditioned in us. And just because we start doing these micro practices, our old conditioning does not just leave. It does not just evaporate. It stays with you because it's just that. It's conditioned, and it's going to make you feel bad. It's going to make you feel like you're being a mean person or a horrible person. And why? Why? Because remember, the reason we people please in the first place is because it kept us safe. So our brains are going to try to keep doing it by making us feel bad about stopping. And that's the part no one talks about, is the guilt that sets in because the old way of thinking hasn't died yet. So just know in advance that that is normal. It is so normal. Like I walked around that grocery store telling myself I wasn't a bad person because everything in me was trying to get me to people please again, because people pleasing meant that I was safe. And I had to teach myself that I'm actually safest when I honor myself and when I stop abandoning myself. Now, okay, we're going to go back to disco balls here for a second. If you listen to the last episode, you're going to start to think I have a major thing with disco balls. And maybe I do. Maybe I do. I do think they're awesome. But I had this thought this week and I want to share it. So I want you to think about a disco ball hanging from the ceiling. Or in my mind, it's hanging from the ceiling at the roller skating rink. And Ghostbusters is playing and the fog machines are on, but I digress. So just imagine it. When the light hits it, hundreds of tiny reflections scatter across the room. And each piece of mirror catches the light a little differently, right? So no two reflections are the same. But here's the deal. Disco balls, like how they work, how they like run their brightest, is when they turn, right? If you glued the disco ball in a place, or if it was broken and it couldn't move, it would be forced to only reflect the light in one direction, and it would just be dull. You would just have those like dots stationary all over the room. And it might not even be noticeable because of that. And hang with me here. I think people pleasers do just this to themselves all the time. We freeze ourselves in one position. And we try to be exactly what everyone else expects. And exactly what keeps the peace. But when you live like that, you aren't reflecting your actual true light, your opinions, your quirks, your joy, your weird, your beautiful human parts. You forget how to turn. And the world gets dimmer because you're never fully seen. So maybe the goal of life, if you're thinking about a disco ball, still hang with me, isn't to be the reflection that everybody else wants. Maybe the goal is to let yourself turn, to let yourself be known, to speak your truth, and be exactly who you are instead of being frozen in this position that everyone wants you to be. Because when you finally stop people pleasing and the light starts to hit you differently, and then the light hits everything else differently, and suddenly the whole room fills with the reflections that were there all along, just waiting for you to turn. So if you take one thing with you today, let it be this. Stop trying to be stagnant. Stop trying to be the one frozen reflection that everyone else expects because you're too afraid of disappointing someone. I got news for you. We're disappointing people even when we're trying to people please. So let's just start letting ourselves turn and shine. You were not meant to be one reflection. You are a whole freaking disco ball, guys. Let yourself spin and watch how much of your own light you create and how much it magnifies when you stop trying to please everyone else around you. So here's your homework this week. Start small. Just simply notice, even just a little bit. Start noticing when you're people pleasing. And then if you can, practice the steps. Ready? We're going to go through them. And again, it's all in the notes. But number 1, practice pausing. Don't say yes automatically. Pause. Breathe. Take a beat. Number 2, understand that it's okay to disappoint people. You guys, if I were you and I was in the throes of this like I was years ago, I would start saying this mantra to myself all the time. Because again, the more you say it, the more your brain gets it. And the more it starts to feel, this is actually true. Other people's feelings are just information, not a threat. And number 3, practice tiny acts of honesty this week. Just practice. A little goes a long way. Guys, thank you so much for hanging with me today again on the Party On podcast. Again, if you are liking these episodes, please go leave us a review and subscribe and shoot me an email. Let me know what you want us to talk about. I would love, love, love to hear from you. I love getting to know you guys and chatting with you guys every week. And again, it's brought to you by the Festive Farm Co. We just announced a brand new ornament that is a birthday ornament in the shop. Gosh, I just love creating these meaningful gifts, and this one is just one of my top faves. I hope you will go check it out at thefestivefarmco.com. And I will see you next week. Until then, party on, friends.